Breaking tonight, the White House just responded to a stunning new report out of the Wall Street Journal saying the Obama administration secretly airlifted $400 million in cash to Tehran. At the very same time, 4 American hostages were released. Critics are calling it a ransom payment, and we are not supposed to pay ransoms.
I want to also point out that by working with Iran on this nuclear deal, we were better able to address other issues. When our sailors in the Persian Gulf accidentally strayed into Iranian waters, that could have sparked a major international incident. Some folks here in Washington rushed to declare that it was the start of another hostage crisis. Instead, we worked directly with the Iranian government and secured the release of our sailors in less than 24 hours. And this brings me to a second major development. Several Americans, unjustly detained by Iran, are finally coming home. In some cases, these Americans faced years of continued detention, and I've met with some of their families. I've seen their anguish, how they ache for their sons and husbands. I gave these families my word. I made a vow that we would do everything in our power to win the release of their loved ones, and we have been tireless. On the sidelines of the nuclear negotiations, our diplomats at the highest level, including Secretary Kerry, used every meeting to push Iran to release our Americans. I did so myself in my conversation with President Rouhani. After the nuclear deal was completed, the discussions between our governments accelerated. Yesterday, these families finally got the news that they had been waiting for. Jason Rezaian is coming home. A courageous journalist for the Washington Post who wrote about the daily lives and hopes of the Iranian people. He's been held for a year and a half. He embodies the brave spirit that gives life to the freedom of the press. Jason has already been reunited with his wife and mom. Pastor Saeed Abedini is coming home. Held for 3.5 years, his unyielding faith has inspired people around the world in the global fight to uphold freedom of religion. Now Pastor Abedini will return to his church and community in Idaho. Amir Hekmati is coming home, a former sergeant in the Marine Corps. He's been held for 4.5 years. Today, his parents and sisters are giving thanks in Michigan. 2 other Americans unjustly detained by Iran have also been released. Nusratollah Hosravi Rudsari and Matthew Trutvitik, an Iranian who was in Iran as a student. Their cases were largely unknown to the world, but when Americans are freed and reunited with their families, that's something that we can all celebrate. So I want to thank my national security team, especially Secretary Kerry, Susan Rice, my national security advisor, Brett McGurk, Avril Haines, Ben Rhodes. Our whole team worked tirelessly to bring our Americans home, to get this work done. And I want to thank the Swiss government, which represents our interest in Iran, for their critical assistance.
We've had presidential scandals for less than this. The Iran-Contra affair in the Reagan administration was all about, did we pay ransom for hostages?
The Iran-Contra scandal transfixed Washington for most of 1987 and renewed a struggle as old as the Republic between the president and Congress.
How can our system of government work if the administration is not candid in its answers to the Congress?
Congressman Lee Hamilton of Indiana and Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North of the President's National Security Council defined the 2 poles of the argument: a Reagan administration obsessed with preventing leaks and a Congress that could not get a straight answer to its questions.
A democracy demands not only that the rights of the minority be protected, but that the rules of the majority be respected. And that's true even if you and I believe that the majority is wrong. We have to respect the rule of law until we can change the law itself, because otherwise the rule of law will be reduced to the law of rule.
In years to come, historians may say the Iran-Contra affair was only a minor incident in Ronald Reagan's presidency. But in the short term, it has severely damaged his credibility and his ability to get his programs through Congress.
When I was in the Reagan administration, my military assistant was taken hostage in Beirut, in Lebanon, and he was ultimately tortured and killed. The reason we don't pay ransom is because the minute you do, they take more hostages. So you may save the few people that you've gotten released because of the ransom, but you put an X on the back of every American after that point. And it's in fact what happened, because the 4 American hostages were released. We gave them the ransom money. 2 more were taken.
Yeah. There's also, I mean, this was a secret deal. Why is this coming out now that we paid all of this cash to Iran right around the time that the nuclear deal was being done, and to get these hostages back?
Well, we knew that the money had been paid, because it was a $1.7 billion payment. It's complicated, but it was money left over from the 1970s. What we didn't know was that there were pallets of cash. Right. That there were actual bills, the euros and other
Swiss francs,
Swiss francs that we actually delivered to the Iranians. You know, I think the Iran deal, the closer and closer you look at it, the smellier and smellier it gets.
Oh, that's what message does the secret deal using all foreign currency? What message does that send to the American people?
In the middle of the night on the back of a Gulfstream.
Exactly. Yeah. You might as well put it in a paper bag.
And which I think they did practically. But and on top of that, we also released 7 Iranian prisoners. Right, so I mean, this just shows kind of the deal making that we do, right? I mean, we remember the Taliban 5, right? I mean, we got our star player Bergdahl, who walked off an American base, and we gave him back 5 Taliban commanders, and some of them have already gotten back to the battlefield. But most importantly here is they said, well, we did this because we wanted to have a show of good faith, and tensions have been eased. And this is on the back of them taking our sailors hostages and putting them on their knees.
This happened before that.
Correct, but when for me, this is just very indicative of this administration's the way that they engage. Right, they do it secretly. They know that the American public would not be happy with this, but it's just
the
middle of the night.
problem with it is the precedent it sets, because now the next president of the United States is going to be expected to pay ransom. You go, and it's continuing to go on, and this president doesn't understand or doesn't care that the precedent he is setting for future American presidents is a very bad one, and it puts us in a very
well, it also flies.
And to my fellow Americans, today we're united in welcoming home sons and husbands and brothers who in lonely prison cells have endured an absolute nightmare. But they never gave in and they never gave up. At long last, they can stand tall and breathe deep the fresh air of freedom. As a nation, we face real challenges around the world and here at home. Many of them will not be resolved quickly or easily. But today's progress, Americans coming home, an Iran that has rolled back its nuclear program and accepted unprecedented monitoring of that program, these things are a reminder of what we can achieve when we lead with strength and with wisdom, with courage and resolve and patience. America can do and has done big things when we work together. We can lead this world and make it safer and more secure for our children and our grandchildren for generations to come. So I want to thank once again Secretary Kerry, our entire national security team, led by Susan Rice. I'm grateful for all the assistance that we received from our allies and partners, and I am hopeful that this signals the opportunity, at least, for Iran to work more cooperatively with nations around the world to advance their interests and the interests of people who are looking for peace and security for their families. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.